Yeah, go figure.
The story's getting better and better.
So Mom and I decided our story is going to be, we got into it. She's 87 and yeah.
So that sounds believable.
Well, she can be really whiny and she says I'm bossy. So yeah, it could be.
Sounds like mothers and daughters to me. Of any age.
There he is.
All right, Lewis, we see you are back.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, I'm using my iPad, so I was 0 for 2 off my computers, and but iPad's gonna work, I think. So
Okay,
sorry I'm
great.
late.
That's all right. We generally start a little late on these Zoom meetings anyhow, just to let stragglers come in with the technology. Seth, it looks like as a co-host, I don't have the powers to make other co-hosts. So when you have a sec, if you could make Lewis a co-host.
Actually, so I'm not gonna be able to, I only really had one slide, and so I'm not gonna need to share my screen. So we can probably get by just being a regular dude tonight.
Okay, that works too. So I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order, and folks will come in as they come in. See a couple of new faces or faces we haven't seen in a while, so welcome. Is anybody totally new want to take a second to introduce themselves?
I'm Gary Woods. I live right down below Travis.
Hey, Gary.
New to it this year. Hey, Travis. New to it this year. Travis has been a godsend. He's helped a bunch, and we're trying to learn what we can.
Welcome aboard, Gary.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, indeed. Are you familiar with using Zoom for meetings, Gary? I think most of the other folks here have been to our Zoom meetings before.
No, I'm not.
Okay. Once Lewis gets into his talk, we're going to mute everybody else just so we don't have a lot of background noise. When Lewis is asking for questions, you can unmute yourself. There is also a chat window that you can type a question in. Depending on what kind of device you're using, that may be down at the bottom of your screen or it may be up at the top. So that's the basics.
Okay.
Going on to the business of our meeting, we'll start with officer reports. Liz, do you have a secretary's report?
All I have is the October minutes were emailed to all the club members. If anybody has any, changes they want to make or errors they find, let me know and I'll edit it.
All right, thank you, Liz. And just a reminder, if anybody didn't catch it last month, our email address and our website for the club have both changed from a .org domain to a .com domain. It's still the same except for those last 3 letters. So CaldwellCOBeekeepers.com is our website. contact@CaldwellCOBeekeepers.com is our email address now. Travis and Amy, do you have a treasurer's report?
Yeah, Liz emailed it out today. Nothing special. We need money.
All right, thank you. Ron, comments as program director?
I'd just like to say happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And I'll be working on next year's schedule as soon as I can.
Okay. Sounds good, Ron. Thank you. Tracy, any vice president comments? Hi, Tracy's on mute, but she's shaking her head no. Couple of comments from me as president. First off, a reminder that it is time to pay your dues for 2021. Dues run on the calendar year. So it's coming up. Local dues are $10, and you can make arrangements with Travis or Amy to pay those. State dues are $15. You can pay those to Travis and Amy, or you can pay them on the state's website at ncbeekeepers.org if you want to pay with a credit card, and it's quick and easy. We are not having a December meeting. December is usually our Christmas party, and with the state of the virus, the board made a decision that that was not going to be an option this year. So we'll start up with meetings again in January, with January 22nd being the first meeting. The board will be meeting between then to determine if we're going to be continuing on Zoom or in person, so please stay posted. B School is the other big unknown on the horizon. At the last officers meeting, we made a decision to tentatively move it to March next year, which is a change from when we've traditionally had it in February. The hope is that this will give an extra month for the virus situation to resolve so that we can actually have a normal B School, or giving us an extra month to figure out how we're going to have some different kind of B School if the virus is continuing to cause problems, while still being early enough in the year that people can get through B School before they get their first Bs. Of the folks that are on the call right now, are any of you interested in helping to plan B School? I see no raised hands. That's fine. If you decide you do want to get involved, or if anybody else who's not on the call right now wants to help out, just send me an email or send Liz an email, and we'd be glad to have some help with that beyond the officers. Does anybody else have any business that they'd like to discuss this evening? Okay, so moving on from there, last month we added a segment where I pulled up the certified beekeeper quizzes on the state website, and we went through those together. And that seemed to go fairly well, and there is a new quiz this month. So I think I'd like to do that again. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Whoops. And since you may not all be able to read these on whatever device you're using, I'll go ahead and read the questions out loud, and then we can discuss what as a group we think the appropriate answer is. So starting with the certified level quiz, and we'll see if we have time to do the journeyman level questions as well. The Africanized honeybee does not produce any honey, cannot be managed by beekeepers, is able to sting more than one time, unlike European honeybees, or has fairly good disease and pest tolerance, possibly due to absconding and swarming characteristics. What do we think the answer is there?
I'll go with B.
Cannot be managed by beekeepers?
Yes.
All right, Ron, that's one answer. Anybody else have an answer?
They can sting multiple times.
They can sting multiple times. All right, we have one vote for cannot be managed by beekeepers and one for is able to sting multiple times.
I would like to vote for D, has fairly good disease and pest tolerance.
All right, Lewis is kind of our authority here. I was going to say that Lewis needed to be our voice of last resort. But as the man has spoken, I think we will go with D. Question number 2, being honeybound means A, that the beekeeper is on their way to an abundant harvest for extraction. B, a brood nest in which the cells are filled with honey to the extent that bees cannot rear brood or enter empty cells to form a continuous winter cluster. C, the seasonal period during which plants are yielding surplus nectar. Or D, that the proventicular valve of the bee has been damaged and honey cannot pass from her crop to her digestive stomach. And today I am really glad that these tests are not given orally because I am stumbling over all the big words.
Mhm.
Who's got a vote?
Two.
B.
Yeah, B.
Okay. I hear multiple answers for that. Any opposing opinions? All right, we'll go with it. Bee bread is A, the food that workers feed only to queen larvae. B, a food rich in carbohydrates that is fed to larvae by nursing bees. C, pollen collected by bees that is mixed with various liquids, then stored in cells for later use as a high protein food for larvae and bees. Or D, a recipe common found in cooking with honey cookbooks, consisting of a basic bread flour, yeast, and large amounts of honey. Who's got a vote here?
I'll go with C.
C.
All right, I'm hearing C. Queen substance is a combination of chemical scents that play an important role in the behavior of the colony. This is relayed around the colony. It is so effective that if the queen were removed from the hive, the entire colony would be aware of her loss within A, a few hours, B, 2 days, C, a week, or D, a month.
A.
A.
All right, I'm hearing a lot of voices for A. Of the 3 segments of the honeybee, which is known as the locomotor segment? Head, thorax, abdomen, or none of the above?
I would say B.
All right, I'm hearing 1 vote for B. Anybody else? We'll go with B. The name of the small sac-like organ in a queen honeybee in which sperm is stored after mating is A, the Dufour gland, B, the ovipositor, C, the spermatheca, or D, the ovuroles.
C.
C, okay. The hypopharyngeal gland produces A, a pheromone that is used as a homing scent, B, hormones that induce the queen to lay eggs, C, food that is fed to larvae, or D, an alarm pheromone that alerts other bees where to sting.
Speak up, Lewis.
I think it's D.
All right, we have a vote for D.
I'd say B.
Sorry, what was that?
B.
B, a vote for B. Okay, I got 2 answers with single votes. I need at least 1 more person to weigh in. And it's not going to be me because I just went through this quiz this afternoon to make sure everything was working.
The A.
Oh no, well, now we have 3 votes for 3 different answers. Let's see, who hasn't answered yet?
This is question 7, the hypopharyngeal gland.
Yes.
I'd like to cast a vote for C, food that is fed to larvae.
Okay, we're gonna let Lewis answer this one because we are collectively confused.
Can I change mine to C?
Unlike swarm cells, supersedure cells can occur anytime in the active season when a queen is failing. Because they are made in response to a time-specific event, the loss or failing of a queen, they tend to be A, uniform in age and occur on the comb face, not the comb edge. B, occur at various stages of maturity and on the comb edge. C, hard to differentiate from drone brood. Or D, found on the frame in a horizontal position.
B.
All right, we have a vote for B.
I'll agree with B.
Okay.
A.
Oh, we have a vote for A. We have 2 votes for B and 1 vote for A.
I'm gonna back Mac.
Okay. We have a voice of authority voting for A. For European honeybees, from the day the egg was laid until the adult bee emerges is how many days for a drone? A, 10 days, B, 16 days, C, 21 days, or D, 24 days for a drone.
B 16.
That's queen.
I'll say C.
Okay, we have a vote for 21 days. Anybody else? All right, we'll go with it. Which of the following best describes what foul brood is? A shotgun pattern of brood laying that indicates the queen has mated with drones too closely related to her. B, any symptoms that are the result of bee diseases or pests that affect developing bees. C, a particularly aggressive behavior of a colony within the apiary. Or D, a specific bacterial disease of bee brood.
D.
I didn't hear you well. Say again.
D.
D as in dog. I hear no opposing opinions. Which of the following is not a method for determining the level of varroa mites in a honeybee hive? We're not going to determine here which one is best, just which one isn't a method at all. Sugar shake, alcohol wash, sticky board, or oil.
D again.
D as in dog again. Okay. Why is it preferable to first remove the outside frame when inspecting a colony? You will find the queen quicker. The outside frame is smaller. It reduces the chance of rolling bees or killing the queen, or the remaining frames will be easier to pry apart.
C.
C. Okay, any opposing opinions?
I'm gonna say D.
Okay, we have a C and a D.
Both.
Both. Well, the system is not set up for both. I know I said I wasn't going to weigh in because I went through this earlier. It is a trickier question, so I'm going to go ahead and weigh in on C. Because D also seems like it would make sense. Entrance feeders are inexpensive and easy to use. However, they have some disadvantages. What are some of these disadvantages? They can encourage robbing. The exposure to the sun limits the use of medications and can spoil the syrup. They need to be refilled often, or all of the above. There one vote for all of the above. Any opposing votes? We'll go with all of the above. All right, 2 more questions here. Voluntary U.S. honey grade standards are issued by the USDA under the authority of the Agricultural Marketing Act of 1946. According to these standards, maximum percent moisture content for grade A honey is 17.8%, 18%, 18.6%, or 21%.
C.
Liz is signaling for C. Mac, I couldn't quite hear you. Was that a
C.
C? Okay, we'll go with C. And lastly, a honey gate is A, part of an escape board or entrance that prohibits bees from returning to honey supers. B, a specialized faucet used for drawing honey from drums, buckets, or extractors. C, a small hole left in the wax cappings on a frame of honey that the bees use to continue to fill the cell. Or D, the valve of a honeybee's anatomy that permits honey to flow from the honey gut into the digestive system.
D.
Say that again.
B.
B as in boy.
Yes.
Any opposing votes? All right, let's see how we did. Okay, we did 93%. That's pretty good. We had some help from Lewis. So what did we miss? Question 9. How long for drone bees from egg laying until emergence? We were close, but it is in fact 24 days and not 21 days. But I think we would have had a little bit of trouble without Lewis's help there. Go ahead and set that aside. I don't think we'll go through the journeyman quiz today. Now I just need to figure out how to stop sharing my screen. Grief. All right. I think at this point we are ready to turn the meeting over to Lewis. Lewis Cobble should need no introduction to most of us, being our regional bee inspector and all around resource for bee knowledge of all kinds. He will be speaking this evening about bee health and about getting ready for winter. Well, Lewis, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. So I think Ron just asked for kind of a bee health update and then kind of open it up for questions. And I have to admit that my phone has been pretty darn quiet this fall and early winter. So I'm not, maybe you guys can help me, tell me what's going on with your bees, but I do want to share some information, at least from my bees, what I saw late summer and in the fall in my own bees. And so I believe that 2020, what I saw was a higher than usual amount of Varroa later in the season. We certainly had, in most areas, a very good honey year. That late summer honey seemed to be, most beekeepers seem to be very pleased with honey production this season, especially the later season honey production. So, I do a lot of monitoring in my bees. I monitor all my colonies about 6 times a year. And so I'm looking at my results from this year compared to my results from last year, particularly June and July, early June and late July. And in early June, my numbers in 2020 were essentially identical to my numbers in 2019. Apiary-wide average was essentially the same in June of 2019 versus June of 2020. But once we talk about late July, those numbers are very different from 2019 to 2020. So the average infestation rate in my yard, and this is about between 25 and 30 colonies each year. My average in July was about a little less than 2%, and my average in that was July of 2019 versus my average in July of 2020 was about 5%. So more than double what it was, in 2019. I definitely had some colonies that were in the double digits as far as infestation rate in late July before I applied my treatment. So I'm a little nervous about how those colonies are going to fare, So I think that we all know that a reasonable infestation rate is less than 3%, 3% or less. I had about 6 colonies in my apiary that were above that. And some of them were as high as 16, 12 to 16%. And so I hope that my treatment was in time to that those bees will fare well. I think that they are I think I was able to catch them in time, and that they will do fine, but we'll see in February. So in my yard, I saw higher mite loads than last year. What did you guys see in late summer?
Mine were kind of all over the place. I monitored every 4 to 6 weeks all year, and I had at least one hive that I never treated. And then I had a handful of hives that I treated 3 times, and some of them, I'd treat and the mites would go down, and then the next time I monitored, they'd be back up again.
Yeah, well, good job with the monitoring. I think that's the real key to bee health. I mean, the varroa mites are by far the greatest challenge to bee health, and we really have to do that monitoring if we're going to keep up with those mites. And so without that monitoring, you're really kind of shooting in the dark. I will say, I think I don't know how many people use Apivar, Apivar strips. It's been a very good treatment for me in the past, and it's been good, every time I've used it. But I'm definitely seeing folks that are using it and not having very good results. And so I have been doing a little work with USDA Baton Rouge. They're looking for amateurized resistance. And so I was able to monitor a few apiaries in Western North Carolina this summer and fall. And I believe that we may be at the beginning of the end of Apivar. I'm definitely seeing some resistance issues. So if you're a person who relies on Apivar, I would strongly encourage you to do that post-treatment monitoring to make sure it was effective. So we'll see how that works. I think the folks that I saw where they were having troubles with Apivar, these are people who tend to buy packages from Georgia. And so I think their mites might be different than my mites. So I haven't bought any bees in 15 years. So I'm not bringing in bees and mites from outside into my operation. So it may be just a matter of time before these mites come to my operation from outside, not because I buy bees, but because I get mites from outside from wherever. So I'm a little nervous about that. And so that's my biggest concern at the moment. So I guess at the moment I'm kind of just in a holding pattern, making sure that I'm checking the weights on the colonies every now and then, making sure nobody's about to starve to death. I'm trying not to feed very much at the moment. I'm setting up for an oxalic acid vaporization here in probably 3 weeks. And so I want my colonies to be as broodless as possible during that period. So, I don't really want to feed at the moment. I don't want to stimulate brood production until I get that oxalic acid application done. And then I can, add feed after that. But I do have a few colonies that are a little light at the moment. So I have been making sure that they've got some food on them, hold them on into the middle of December until I can get that application done.
Louis?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm not glad to hear you say it either, but I'm glad to hear you talking about the Apivar. I treated with Apivar in late July, and I went back and tested again 3 weeks ago, and I had up to 16% varroa. So I don't feel like the Apivar worked that well.
Yeah, so it's hard to say that that far apart. So if you treat it in July, definitely I saw in my own bees last year, I treated just like I did this year. This year usually I will do another monitoring. So pre-treatment monitoring, post-treatment monitoring in late September. And then I'll usually do one more monitoring in October to make sure I haven't been reinfested. I wasn't able to do that.
You tell all your hives or just a few of them?
I do all my hives. I wasn't able to do that October monitoring this year because I had a hernia repaired and I had a carpal tunnel surgery, and I wasn't able to get it done this year. But last year I did do the October monitoring, and I had colonies that were clean after my Apivar treatment. So they were clean in the middle of September. And then I had 3 colonies in the middle of October that went to like 5, 6, 7%. So that was a reinfestation from outside. So my Apivar worked, but I think I got, infested from outside. If you had done monitoring immediately when you took the strips out and you still had high mite loads, that would be a good indication that, that treatment wasn't, you might have some resistance going on. If you did it, 6 weeks after you took the strips out, it's not clear if it's resistance or reinfestation from outside. But certainly, if you're thinking about using Apivar next year, get up with me in late July before you do your treatment next year, and we can do a little resistance test in your apiary to get a feel for where you are. And and it's a 1 day, so I'll come out in the morning, we'll have results in the afternoon, and we'll be able to have a good idea of if your treatment's likely to be effective or not. So I was getting some calls from people who were doing that treatment or that post-treatment monitoring right after they took the strips out. And I was able to respond to those, within a day or two after the strips came out. They had high mite loads post-treatment, did the resistance testing. Mites didn't seem to be very responsive to the treatment. So it's pretty clear that there was something bad going on there. So I really want to warn everybody. So with all the different treatments, none of them are slam dunks. They're all highly variable. I think in the past, Apivar has been one of the more steadfast ones for folks who are willing to use it. It's not for everybody. It is a synthetic miticide. It's not for everybody, but it has been effective in the past. And it's just not the slam dunk that it used to be. So I don't know where that's going, but we are working with USDA to try to get some answers there. But I hate to see that one go away.
Louis, may I ask a question somewhat related to one thing you said?
Mm-hmm.
When about the bee community itself, beekeeper community, when you said that you had surgery and you weren't able to do some things, do other people not come to help, or is that a no-no for other people to work in others' bees, or?
I'm just an independent cuss, and I just didn't ask for help. It was
Okay.
late enough in the season that I said, I'm just going to let it ride. I'm going to do my oxalic application in a few weeks, and I think I'm okay. And so I think I could have called on some friends for some help, but I just tend to not do that. But certainly, I think the beekeeping community is it's one of the better ones out there. And if you need some help, you can usually find some help. But I just didn't ask for it.
Okay, thank you, because I was not able to get my bees this year because my mom fell and broke her hip and had to have surgery the week I was supposed to pick up my bees. So and of course with COVID, it's just been weird anyway, but I was just wondering in general.
Yeah, so it really has been a tough year to be a new beekeeper. Even if you were able to get through bee school, that helps. So not everybody was able to even get all the way through bee school, but even those that did get all the way through bee school, it was very difficult to find mentors this year with all this going on. And that really, I think, is having that mentor is really critical to success as a new beekeeper. And this was just a tough year. And so, and I think it's going to continue to be as long as we're kind of in this situation. So, I mean, that mentor-mentee relationship is just critical to a new beekeeper's success. And so it does make it very tough.
Thank you. My mom and I agreed that if it had to happen, you know, in a year, this was probably a good one because it was just, yeah.
Yeah. I can't
Thank
wait
you.
for 2020 to be done. Any bee health questions? What are you seeing in your apiary? What are your concerns? Is everybody's, you have a nice big cluster of healthy bees below and plenty of food above, which I think is the key to getting your bees through the winter. And if you don't, it might be too late to get there. So.
Louis, I got one question.
Sure.
I know that after it gets cold or have a frost, we shouldn't try to combine a weak hive. But if it's, say, a frosty day and then it warms up and 2 or 3 days after that, or the nights are fairly warm, can you still combine them then?
I think so. I mean, so if once you get them together, you're fine. I mean, I think on a 55 or 60 degree day without a lot of wind, if you need to get into your bees, if you have a purpose, you have a job that you need to get done, I think you can get that done. And if you need to combine those weak colonies, I mean.
Well, I've got one colony that I have questions about whether it would make it through the winter or not. And I didn't know whether it was too late to try to combine them or not.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what do you have, what do you have left to rescue? Is it this big or is it this big? I mean, if it's this big,
it's still a good hive. It's just not nearly as strong as the rest of them.
Yeah. So you might find the next smallest one, put those two together. So you got a kind of a medium-sized cluster, and make sure they have some food and move them on through the winter.
Okay, thank you.
I have I don't know, situation. So it was a really beautiful day. And, when it's a beautiful day, you say, oh, I'm going to go work out in the bee yard. So I'm out in the bee yard. And one of my hives, there was this small group of bees outside on the robber screen. And I thought they were attacking one of those crazy wasps, those big giant wasps. They weren't. The queen was walking around outside the hive and they were all clustered around her and protecting her. And so what I did was I just kind of captured her with I have a little foam queen capture thing. And I opened up the hive and I put her, back in, and nobody, I kind of tested it a little bit to see if, I don't know, they were going to try and hurt her or something, but they all seemed to be like, it was this small group of worker bees was like, come on, what are you doing out here? So like, what's going on there? So just wander out on a beautiful day and say, or.
So it's hard to say. I have a couple of guesses. I don't know what really is going on, but if when I see that in my apiary, I usually think this colony may have had a supersedure, where mom and daughter are working side by side there for a little bit. They're having a change of management, but they, and now it's time for the real deal. So it's really time to fire mom. And so they've just kind of thrown her out, but she still has a few supporters, right? So
supporters. Okay.
Yeah. But the other thing is, so I guess the other part of that is if you had so that's on the back end of a supersedure as it's finishing up. On the front end, if you had a supersedure kind of mother-daughter working side by side, and that the daughter went out for a mating flight and came back and couldn't find the entrance,
Mhm,
maybe she couldn't get in the front door.
mhm.
Or so that doesn't even have to be a supersedure. That could just be probably would be a supersedure, but maybe they change management. So it's hard to say. But I think so. When I find that in my apiary, I do every now and then I'll find a queen outside the colony. I'll just pop her back in, and I'll usually find her back outside in a day or two. So they had thrown her out. She was. So I don't expect. So I think so. Hopefully, you have another queen in there that is has taken the reins, and that's what I suspect is going on. But we'll know more in February when they start to brood up, right?
Yeah, okay.
So it can be really difficult to kind of discern what's going on this time of year when there's not much brood production. And
Right.
so I've inspected some colonies where we have a lot of bees,
Mhm.
not even one egg anywhere.
That's what I saw when I went in there.
Yeah,
There was a little bit of brood still to hatch, but nothing else. No, I could
Yeah.
not find, and I tried to go, I didn't go through every single frame, but that's the way it looked to me, so.
Yeah, so it does get kind of tricky this time of year because a lot of bees, it depends on the race of the bees, but a lot of them have just really shut down.
Mhm.
And there's, probably a month ago, there was a lot of static on the listservs. Oh, I need a queen, and
Mhm.
probably bees are just doing what bees do, and that's shut down for the winter. And
Right.
so I would encourage folks to just, if you have a nice bees, make sure they have enough food.
Mhm.
Just let them ride. And if they're not brooding up in mid to late January, then you may have to combine them with a queen right colony. But I would say just kind of remain calm at the moment. They're just doing what they do. The other thing is, hey, that's a great opportunity to use oxalic acid to clean up any mites that that may have come in since you treated.
Yeah.
And so you can start the next year with as few mites as possible. So I think I encourage people to embrace that broodlessness. So as beekeepers, we want big, strong colonies, lots of brood. But that's not necessarily the best thing, right? So this time of year, they do want to shut down, and just embrace that and use it to your advantage.
Well, we're doing a thermal heat treatment this year. So I started doing it in June, and I'm still doing it. So when it's a nice day above 70 degrees, I go out and I do one of the hives, and I'm just going to keep, as long as, it's got to be warmer than 70 degrees to do a treatment. And that's what I'm doing for the varroa mites. And we'll see what happens, in the spring, how they, see how it works.
Have you done any monitoring in July, August, September, October?
I did some monitoring in the early bit of it, June and July, and I didn't have terribly high mite loads. But then we were doing a couple of meetings with we did a couple of meetings with heat treatment discussions. And the people were, instead of doing the, the alcohol wash and stuff like that, they were just observing the whiteboard on the bottom to see if the mites were falling off, and then evidence of, opening up the drone brood and throwing the larva out. And if you saw that evidence, then that was proof that they were cleaning out the varroa mite. So I was kind of like letting that go. But I'm, in the beginning of next year, so when we start checking in February again, I'm going to keep a more precise check on it. And because I have my system and I can start it early and go through the whole year.
I would really urge you.
I'm just kind of like getting a treatment in whenever I can.
Yeah, I really urge you to follow Sarah's lead and do that. Put that monitoring on your schedule, make it a part of your bee season. It's critical. And so I mean, it's the most important thing. So try to make that a regular part of your plan from March through October.
Mhm.
Hey, Louis, I was thinking about those killer hornets,
Mm-hmm.
and supposedly they were only on the West Coast, but I've seen them here, at least what I think they are.
So I think what we're seeing around here is a European hornet.
Huh?
So we haven't had any reports of. I would it would be very, very unusual to have these Asian giant hornets in the area. But I did get a call today from a farmer. I'm going to go pick one up. He's got it in a plastic bag.
Mhm.
I'm going to go pick it up and look at it tomorrow morning. But I'm 100% sure it's a European hornet. You know, if you're not sure, if you can grab a sample, and I'll come grab it and look at it. If I'm not sure, I can send it on to Raleigh for positive identification.
Okay.
Say, Lewis,
Yes.
I trapped a number of them this summer. I've got some in alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
I've got about, I guess, probably 10 of them.
Mm-hmm.
If you need some more.
So are you worried that they're Asian giant hornets, or you feel like you're pretty comfortable that they're European?
I don't know. They're pretty big.
Okay. So I'd be glad to pick them up. If you want to just give me a holler.
Can bring to you. I can bring them to you.
Yeah. So give me a call tomorrow, and we'll try to schedule something for next week. I can meet you in the middle, or come to your house, or wherever you want to do.
Okay, will do.
Let me know. Yeah. You have my phone number?
I think so.
Okay. 828-230-4544, just in case.
Got it. Thank you.
If it's easier, if you wanted to drop something off at the office, and then Lewis, if you're through, that way you wouldn't have to. I mean, if there was a reason to meet up, I don't want to discourage that, but if it was just a place to drop them off where you can get them, Lewis.
Seth, I'm really kind of slow, and I just embrace these opportunities to get out and do some work. So,
So while we're on the subject, I just did a quick search for a side-by-side photo comparison of the two. I'm going to put my screen share back on and pull them back up. And this is from an extension office out of Maryland, so it should be a good source. They are pretty similar looking, but there are also some differences, with the European hornet being on the left here and the Asian hornet on the right here. To my eye, the biggest difference is the pattern of the shape of the striping on the abdomen.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look at that. No, we'll next time you see one, take a look at that.
Okay.
So if it's striped.
Good work, Sarah.
And I've certainly been seeing the European hornets around my hives and even occasionally in my house. An ordinary fly swatter will take them out as long as your aim is good.
And look at that big yellow head.
Yeah, the one on the left too, the European that we have around here, they have a lot more sort of a bright orangey red color on them. And I've been seeing them here around our house for probably the last 3 years, maybe.
Yep. I think Seth just posted a nice document from Cooperative Extension about the European.
Thanks. I didn't know I'd hit the enter button already. I put it in there.
I think it went. Let me check my chat.
Yeah, I think it did. That shows a bunch more. We've gotten a boatload of calls about the Asian hornets.
Yeah. So it's out.
Murder hornets.
Yep. Got a murder cat on my lap.
So Liz, I have a question about bee health from a nutrition perspective.
Sure.
So this is my 3rd year as a beekeeper, and my hives have more than doubled every year. Tracy and her hives are about a mile away from me, and there are at least 2 other beekeepers in between us. I'm starting to think about next year, and one of my limiting factors is how many hives can I realistically manage? But I'm wondering about what are the warning signs on a bee nutrition level that there are just too many bees, too many hives in this small area.
I would think if they're constantly kind of starving for pollen, so if you're doing inspections all the time and there's never any extra pollen in the colony or in your colonies, I think that would be an indicator. I wouldn't really be too concerned. I would think that a lot of commercial beekeepers in the area are putting 40 colonies in a yard, so 40 colonies right in the same area. And so, and they do fine generally, so if there's a very dry, harsh year, that could be too many, but I wouldn't have a concern, if you had, if everybody around you had about 15 or so, I think you'd be fine. I have seen, I guess the most severe incident I've seen, it was in the Piedmont of North Carolina in the summer when it was in the, July, August, worst case scenario. It was a queen producer that had a whole bunch of hives and they were cannibalizing the brood. So there was not enough pollen to go around and they were cannibalizing brood for protein. I've only seen that once or twice, and that was the most severe. So.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Sarah.
Yes.
I'm teaching my bees to fight, so you and Tracy better watch out.
uh,
And raising some thug bees.
leave it to Travis.
Now, how are you going to teach those bees not to fight you if you're teaching them to fight?
I
Yeah,
feed them.
No bully bees, no bullies.
Hey, Lewis.
Yes.
So throughout the winter, do you recommend kind of going in and checking on your bees if it's over 50 degrees, or do you feel that there's really nothing you can do and you just let them go?
I would say the minimum would be to just kind of lift the hive to make sure that, they have a little weight to them. So there's plenty of food. I might pop a top to see where the cluster is. And if there's food near the cluster, generally I would say, look, your job as a beekeeper is to make sure things are in good shape in early October. Good cluster of bees downstairs, plenty of food above. And then, then you can really minimize how much you have to mess with them through the winter. So, don't let them starve to death. So kind of keep an eye on the food, and you can do that easily without a lot of manipulation. We're going to catch some warm days where it's 70, 65, 70, and use those days to, so on the 50, 60 degree days, you can kind of monitor your apiary, kind of look at see who's flying and who's not, and make some notes. And then on those 65 to 70 degree days, you can go check those colonies and see what's going on. But it is really, there's not a lot to be done, to help colonies at this time. So once we get maybe into mid to late January, the healthier colonies will be brooding up, and then you can maybe share some resources, with the weaker ones. But this time of year, you're limited as to what you can do to help them. Does that make sense?
Is the lowest temperature that they'll still be flying around?
Say that again.
What is the lowest temperature that they will still be flying around?
So it seems to vary, at least in my yard, it varies from colony to colony, but typically 50 to 55. I see a fair amount of flight, and I have a few colonies that seem to fly, at the 40, 45 range. I wouldn't expect to see any flight below that, or very much.
I was always curious about bees very far south, like South America. What happens how do they winter over? And they then go to the extreme far north when it's really severely cold?
That's a good question. I haven't kept bees in those extremes. So I don't have any firsthand experience. But I would think that, so they still have the same rhythm, I think, of brood production. So down south, they will slow down the brood production, but they wouldn't shut it down the way we shut it down usually here. And up north, they're going to shut it down earlier and start it back up later.
So further down south, they actually keep producing during the winter?
More so. So, I mean, more so than here, but they still have that cycle of, peak in July and trough in December, I think.
Right.
And it can be quite variable on the race of the bee and the beekeeper. What are they feeding? Are they stimulating? So it's highly variable.
Mm-hmm.
Is anybody thinking about doing oxalic applications in the next 4 to 6 weeks, 3 to 6 weeks, something like that?
Me.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
we will be too.
yeah, I just want to remind folks that there's only one legally approved oxalic acid product that you can use legally in your colonies. It's called apabioxal. It's got the EPA registration number on it, EPA establishment number on it. It's got the label that tells you how to use it. Has first aid information, personal protective equipment, tells you how to use it. So I've been running into a lot of people that said, oh, I didn't know that. So I think that I have not been doing a good job of, kind of communicating that we can only use approved products in the colony. So if the product doesn't say it's approved to be used in beehives, then you can't use it in your beehive. So there are a lot of different oxalic acid products out there. This is the only one that you can legally use in your colony.
So, Lewis, I've been wondering, I still have the oxalic acid that came with my vaporizer. I haven't run out yet, but when you run out of what comes with your applicator, where do you get that oxalic acid that you're talking about?
Bee
Do you
supply
order it?
places.
Okay.
So I bought this from Honey in the Hive in Weaverville 2 weeks ago, but you can order it from Dadant, Better Bee, Man Lake.
Yeah.
Okay.
The bee supply places will have it.
Okay.
Yep.
So how many times during the fall, winter, early spring, how many times or how often do you usually treat your bees with oxalic acid?
Do it one time in the middle of December.
Okay.
So I do it one time at kind of maximum broodlessness, right?
Okay.
I have another question.
Sure.
Does anybody have a good tip or a secret to how to clean up your hive tools? My hive tools are just disgusting, and I can't like get them, like I kind of spray them with alcohol and wipe them, but they're all encrusted with propolis, and I was wondering if there was a way to kind of clean them up. But I don't want to use my good kitchen pots to boil them or something. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Mhm. I put mine, so I have about 12 or 13 in the truck. And so I have like a clean pile and a dirty pile. And every now and then I'll get all my dirty ones and I'll put them in my dishwasher with the
Really?
sterilized setting. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It does a great job.
And it doesn't like muck up your dishwasher?
Hasn't yet.
Okay.
So, but I've only been doing it for 5 years, so we'll see.
Okay.
I use my lighter
Yeah.
and heat it,
Yeah.
and it melts off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. You can use a torch. You could dip it in alcohol and light it on fire.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I have a propane torch, and I'll heat one hive tool and then scrape it with another hive tool.
Yep.
And that'll take almost everything off of it.
Yep.
I just use a
When you
knife
put it
to
in your
scrape all that stuff off of it and wipe it down with alcohol.
Yep.
So when you put it in your dishwasher, would that be on the top rack? Because that could be an issue here in this house.
Oh, stop.
I'll throw it in with the utensils, with the forks and knives.
There
I'll
you
put it in
go.
that little basket. But whatever the house rules are, you would follow those, right?
Of course.
Well, what I was nervous about is that the propolis would sort of get into the workings of the dishwasher. Oh, wow. Okay. That's all right. We'll just buy a new dishwasher.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
That's what my concern was,
I haven't had any issues, but your mileage may vary. Yeah. So you might take one hive tool and scrape that propolis off before you put it in the, so do a little prep, scrape them down, get the big chunks off, throw them in, sterilize them, you're good to go.
Okay.
Just scrape them down and then put them on the bottom rack with the cat.
Well, I'm gonna miss the seafood feast this year.
No, you're
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
It's canceled.
He said he's gonna miss it.
I know we're all gonna miss
We're all
it.
gonna miss it.
Oh, I thought you were saying you couldn't come. You couldn't attend.
No, I'm just disappointed that we're.
Yeah.
It's been a little disappointing this year. But
Yeah.
in there, kind of rolling with the punches.
Yeah.
So I do have one question for the whole group that I meant to ask earlier in the meeting. I know some of us are sold out of honey. I'm curious who is still selling honey this year? And because I'm starting to get some questions, second and third hand, people looking for honey. We have a swarm list on our website. The public can call in and say, I've got a swarm in my yard. I'm thinking we ought to have a list on our club website, our public facing website, of members who sell honey. And I did post this on Facebook a couple weeks ago. I got only one response. Those of us who are here, who still has honey for sale?
Anybody?
Not me.
Okay.
I have honey, but it's not for sale.
Fair enough.
Maybe that's why you didn't get any response. Nobody had any.
That could be. I do still have honey for sale, but I don't want to be using my position as president to get all the honey sales if there's other people with honey still left. But it sounds like, Liz, maybe we should send out an email to the whole club. I think that reaches more than the Facebook page.
Okay.
Sounds like it may be just me and Edwin Miller that's got honey for sale right now.
Travis, do you and Amy,
Amy and I still have some.
Okay.
You guys do? Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to be listed on the website if we put that up?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Okay, who was talking? I couldn't tell. Who just said they had honey?
Travis and Amy.
Okay, all right, thanks. Yesterday, when I went to Greensboro to pick up Luna, I was going out 18 toward Wilkesboro, and I stopped somewhere in Caldwell County because they had signs. Was that anybody in the Beekeepers group from Caldwell that y'all know of?
Was it out in Kings Creek?
Yes, it was.
Was it on the main road?
Yeah, it was on 18.
Was it the White House that's on the hill on the right with tons and tons of bees?
Yes.
Yes, they are in the Caldwell Beekeepers, but they do not attend any of the meetings. But they're, well, let me put it this way. They're on the Facebook page. They're one of the people that's allowed on the Facebook page, but I don't know that they're members in our association and they don't attend the meetings.
Oh,
I
is
know
that,
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, the
Rob Cool.
Yeah.
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 Who is it? What did y'all say?
Rob, I think it's Rob Cool.
Okay, because it was really kind of cool. You just pull up and there's a box, and there was like a cart that you could buy from, and it was honor system. You just put your money in a box, and then they had a little basket with a bunch of change and dollars in it if you needed change. And so you just shopped and got what you wanted and put your money in the box and got your change out of the basket. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I had my mom and Luna with me, and they couldn't get over the fact that I just stopped on the side of the road and bought stuff. So, but I haven't tasted it yet, but I didn't know if it was someone that was, that we all knew or not. So.
Sounding like we may be about out of questions here. That being the case, I guess if somebody would like to move to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Anybody want to second that?
Second.
All right. Hope to see you all in January. Hope that sometime before much longer we'll be able to meet in person safely. But in the meantime, have a good Christmas, a good New Year's, whatever holidays you celebrate over the winter, and stay safe out there.
Thank you. It was a good program. I enjoyed it.
Yes, and thank you, Louis, for coming and speaking to us.
You guys, thanks for the invite. Talk
Thank
to
you,
soon.
Louis.
Happy
Thanks, Louis.
holidays.